it takes effort on the spiritual path. It takes every day you have to show up. And you have to show up with your broken bits and your emptiness, and you have to show up with your vulnerability, and you have to show up with your big heart as well, and your open mind and open to new possibilities and meet the wonder of the moment. And that comes by the grace of our teachers because they meet the moment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Free Radical Podcast. Today, I had the joy of talking to a very dear Vaishnavi, sister, and elder on the spiritual path, Manjuali Devi Dasi. Manjuali began practicing Bhakti Yoga in 1971, and 1 year after, she was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. In 1976, she and her late husband, Jayatirtha Das, were sent to England by Srila Prabhupada to manage Bhaktivedanta Manor and oversee the UK Yatra. After Jayatirtha Das accepted the renounced order in 1980, Manjuali and her young son served in California and India. Later, upon returning to the UK, Manjuali worked for many years as a media librarian for a national newspaper in London. She eventually moved to the southwest of the UK, where she worked in psychotherapy and counseling for an educational awarding body, producing training films and other educational materials. Today, Manjuali serves in her home ashram and is actively involved in interfaith dialogue, as well as environmental and social causes within her community. So we had a very insightful, deep conversation with Manjuali, talking about her deep connection with her gurus, Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhara Maharaj, how she navigated different dark night of the souls, how prayer plays a fundamental role in her existence, who Krishna is as an ever-evolving mystery, the importance of connecting to other traditions and drawing insight from every possible direction, and in brief, how she as an elder member of our community can give a beautiful, hopeful point of reference for us younger generations to relate to find the process of Bhakti Yoga relatable and relevant to our particular journey, and how to ultimately, in her own words, being able to integrate all the different layers of our experience as part of the journey. It's all part of the journey. So this is the Free Radical Podcast. To support it, please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the bell, and if you feel nourished by the conversation, as usual, feel free to like it, to share it, to drop your comments or thoughts in the commentary section to keep the conversation ongoing. It's an eternal dialogue. So that said, without further ado, dear friends, brothers and sisters, here is Manjuali Devi Dasi. So, dear Manjuali, thank you so much for coming. I'm so happy to have you here today with me and with us in our Free Radical Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maharaj. It's my honor and pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. I generally recall for a minute how I came to meet each one of my guests. I think in our case, the one to blame in this case is Namrasa Prabhu, because he talked to me about you. So he will have to pay the consequences of this beautiful synergy we are going through together. And then after that, he talked to me very nicely about you and about your connection with both Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And I felt intrigued because I never heard about you. So then I think I sent you an email and we had some back and forth, very considerable, nice, rich back and forth. And to the point that eventually we met a few weeks or months ago in the UK for our radical personalism retreat. And that was a highlight for, I will say, all of us, for me to meet you and to meet so many others. And anyhow, eventually now we are joining together every Saturday for our weekly satsang with you and some other friends, Stepan and Nandini, her husband. So blessed and so happy to continue finding an expanding tribe of like-minded spirits. And you, Manjuali, in one sense, have not been that much publicly present, so to say, but more like retired in your own hermit life of bhajan. So somehow you have chosen today to join this conversation. So why you have accepted to come to the podcast today? What brings
Well,
you here today to the table?
well, you asked me, and then you asked me so kindly, and I actually pushed back on it, and I said that actually, I'm a quiet, just sadhaka doing my practice, and
Mm,
to come out into the world was like, out of my comfort zone, to actually go on a public forum. It's one
mm,
thing speaking to a bunch of girls when I go to the manor or when I do my online classes, but to
mm,
actually come out into the world and actually share my story and share, um, you know, the highlights that have actually kept me in the practice for over 50 years. So that I
mhm,
feel that Prabhupada told me, not to be a miser, to share. And also to come out is actually growth. We can't be static in our spiritual life. We have to meet new challenges. We have to shake it up all the time to keep the thread fresh and to keep our awareness
mm,
fresh. And so I had to, I met the challenge. I'm here today. And we'll see. And it's an adventure. Everything is an adventure in this material world. And we have to find Krishna in it. So
mm.
that's why I'm here today. I'm looking to see where is Krishna in this podcast today.
Yeah, in principle, we know Krishna is everywhere, but sometimes we need to actually discover where he is and how he is present. So he's
Yeah.
even in a podcast,
Why
as
not?
improbable as that may sound to some. He's even in a podcast. He's even in the Free Radical podcast. So
It's even
yeah,
in the Free Radical podcast.
yeah.
Yes.
I
So,
welcome your willingness to jump together into that venture of finding how is Krishna present in our conversation today. So
yes.
thank you so much for that. Yeah. And I really like the word adventure, and you really like the word adventure as well. And
Yes.
I always like to remind myself one of the names of Krishna is Urukram, which means somehow he who takes very bold steps, but another way of translating that is the supreme adventurer. So, needless to say, we want a relationship with such a person who is more interested in adventure than in preserving the status quo. We have to be ready for some sacred holy shaking. So,
Well,
so thank
everything's
you.
moving. There's nothing
Yeah,
still. And
yeah.
so we just, are we going to catch the wave? Or are we going to sit on the shore? I think we go for the wave.
Let's be good surfers for sure.
Mhm.
Manjuali, I'm thinking about, of course, some. I may like to just jump since we are
Yeah.
talking about wave. I would like to go to the wave of your connection with your guardians to begin with. I don't know. You are an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and at the same time, then you have had such a profound connection with Srila Bhakti Goswami Maharaj. Both of them are for me also such a crucial guardians and angels in my journey. So of course, I'm sure throughout the conversation we'll be landing in so many of their teachings in your life and your experiences with them. But nonetheless, I like to begin asking you like how you live your relationship with each one of them, with Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, both being your gurus, both having been so close and dear, not only to your heart, but so close and dear to each other.
Mhm.
So what I'm asking is how does Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj meet together in Manjuali's heart? Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
What a beautiful question, actually. Well, Srila Prabhupada, of course, came first, and I met the
Mm,
devotees in 1971 in Chicago. Baulaspa was the first devotee I met. And I was just visiting my family at that time, and I read the Bhagavad Gita and I went, yes, even though I was a pacifist against war. At first, I had to get myself through the
mm,
war and then
mm,
find out the war's inside. But anyway, I met Srila, and then I left. Well, the temple closed, and I went to California, and I traveled. And I
Mm-hmm.
visited different communities, you know. I'm a child of Woodstock. I'm a child of the 60s, you know. I was on the road, you know,
Mm.
searching for the garden, yeah. We are stardust and we are golden. We have to get to the garden. And Prabhupada brought me to the garden. I came to Los Angeles, Dinabandhu. I was traveling, visiting temples, and Dinabandhu brought me to Los Angeles.
Oh,
Says
nice.
Prabhupada's coming to Los Angeles. He was in the temple president Santa Barbara. And
Mm.
so I went to Los Angeles because the master was coming, Srila Prabhupada was coming. And little did I know I had to be there a few months before he came. But I learned, you know, I was a sewer and I just, you know, I was used to community life. So I just felt at home there. And when Prabhupada came, it was ecstatic. And the first time I saw Prabhupada, I remember we were all in the temple room and I was helping decorate, you know, and then they said, Prabhupada's coming. And we
Mm.
just hit the floor. And then I see these feet walking by my eyes. So I met his feet first.
That's how it's supposed to happen, right? The proper sequence.
I just thought, oh God, and they were golden, of course. And this all is filtered through many years of
Mm.
meditating on that moment in time and
Mm.
how Srila Prabhupada, and then
Mm.
just seeing he wasn't a very tall man, but he was a huge giant in the
Mhm.
sense that he carried himself with so much nobility and dignity
Mm.
and purpose. And, you know, and he just walked in and I just thought, oh, he's my master.
Mm.
Immediately, I just knew that he was my spiritual master. And yeah, and then within a few months, I was initiated, and from Srila Prabhupada coming there, and actually, my relationship deepened as I did service. I did mostly DD service and Saturday Sankirtan,
Mm.
and Prabhupada. Was, you know, the women in those days, we didn't have a lot of association, but that was okay. We were just Team Prabhupada, you know, and that was so Prabhupada. Yes, and I got Gayatri Mantra about a couple of months after my initiation in August, Balaram's appearance day.
Mhm.
Nishingadeva's appearance day first, second initiation, Balaram's appearance day. And
Mm.
I remember going up to get Gayatri from Srila Prabhupada. And I was so nervous.
I
I was
can
sitting with him and I was just like shaking, you know, and then he said, no, calm down and, you know, follow me. And it was so intimate, you know. And then he said, no, not on the cracks on the pads of your
mm.
and then I just felt like, yes, he was my father. He was my spiritual father. And that was the beginning, and so many other stories after that that actually anchored my and within 3 months of my well, November, August, about 4 months later, I was married, you know.
Mm.
So that whole year of 1972, 1st of October, I was arranged married to Jayatiri.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that whole year was a really seminal year for me in actually entering deeply into the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. My story with Srila Sridhar Maharaj came after my husband had taken sannyas in 1980. I was sent to California, and Jaitirtha was serving in England.
Mhm.
And there's a whole drama around that, but we don't
Yeah,
have to
we'll go there
we'll
later.
go
No
there
problem.
later. But Jaitirtha was only 31 years old when he took sannyas, and it was a challenging time for all of us. He was going through
Mhm.
some health challenges as well.
Mhm.
And in 1981, we came back to England in 1981 because he wanted his son to go in his Gurukula and not the other zonal Gurukula. So we came back to England, and then Jaitirtha had some difficulty. And so there was a moment when I wanted to help him. And so we went to India, we went to Badrinath. I went back with him for 2 months just to try and see if we could help him. But and so we went to Badrinath Joshimath, then we went to live in Puri. And one day there was a knock, knock, knock at the door, and it was Bhakti Churu Swami who found us in Puri. Because we had just taken some distance for a little while just to kind of try to see where Jaitirtha was going and where this whole, how this drama, because he had disciples, and we had to kind of find a way to hold everything together. Anyway, we were staying on this little house that we rented on the main road in Puri, and Bhakti Churu Swami was at the door, and he said, the GBC really want you, Jaitirtha, to go and meet Sridhar Maharaj. So that was the first introduction. It came through the GBC. And so we went to Bhubaneswar and got on a plane and went to Calcutta and stayed with Adridaran and Nirguna. And Bhakti Churu and Jaitirtha went to see for counseling to Sridhar Maharaj.
It was not in his Sri Chaitanya Saraswat at that time. It was in Kolkata.
Yeah, he was there. Chaitanya. He was so Jaitirtha and Bhakti Churu went to Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat to have darshan of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and to ask for some guidance for, because they felt that Jaitirtha had this big responsibility of being a guru, but also they wanted to help. And Sridhar Maharaj was very, very close to Srila Prabhupada, and they felt that he would help Jaitirtha to kind of get back in his flow, so to speak, and strengthen his bhajan. So we went to Sridhar Maharaj. Jaitirtha went, and Bhakti Charu. And Sridhar Maharaj met Jaitirtha. He says, I won't speak to you unless you bring your wife. So I had to go with my 5-year-old son. And so we went to Sridhar Maharaj, and I was worshiping Gary Raj. So we did the worship downstairs. And we came up to see Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he said he wanted to speak to me alone, just with my son. And at that point, he said that because Jaitirtha had the sannyas vesh, and because he was a guru, in the lineage of Mahaprabhu, it was important that he maintained that connection, and that there wasn't no going back, and that it wasn't, he told me, I think I mentioned before, he said it was my decision. He told me the credibility of the Sampradaya was on my shoulders.
Yeah, you told me that once.
I told you that once, and I carried that, So
first meeting, right? That was first meeting.
The credibility of Sampradaya is on
that's the price of falling at the feet of someone like Srila Sridhar Maharaj.
Oh my God. And I remember the tears were rolling down my face, and I was just smiling, and I was just like in his, and he told me this most wonderful story. He said, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, had asked me to go to the West. He said, I couldn't go to the West. I couldn't understand the intonation. And he said, by Swami, he called him Swami Maharaj. He said, by his grace, he has brought you here to allow me to help you on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And it was so touching and so blessed, because I had to give up my family life again. And not that the family life was the reason I came to Krishna. I came, and that's what Srila Sridhar Maharaj told me. So before you came to your Guru Maharaj, Swami Maharaj, Were you married? And I said, no.
Mm.
And did you come for marriage?
That's
No.
a good, valid question. Many comfort. Yeah.
I said, no.
Mm.
And he said, what did you come for? I said, to learn about God, to love
Mm.
God, to learn about a path to loving God, and for self-realization and for purpose and meaning in my life. I
Mm.
didn't come just to collect.
Mm.
And he was so loving and gracious, and he said at that moment in time that he would support me in this decision,
Mm.
and on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. He
Mm.
never actually put himself forward. He was looking after us on behalf of my Guru Maharaj,
Mm.
who was a beloved friend of his. And he
Mm.
saw that that we all, every yeah, he just gave me some mercy. I can't get into the whole thing, but and he looked after my son was so upset that he had to lose his dad again. So he told Sridhar
Mm.
Maharaj, "I'm going to jump from the top of this." And Sridhar Maharaj, he's just a little boy sitting there with his little Sika, and Sridhar Maharaj said to him, "No, sit down." And he just calmed him down, and he told him, no, he would look after him.
Mm.
So it was such that intimate story of in life, different things happen that actually turn the dial and bring us closer to our destiny, and also closer to Krishna. And that was one of the gifts of me giving up my husband, was
Mhm.
that I got guidance and
Mm.
affection and a relationship with a saint. And
Mm.
that has actually held me all these years, as has Srila Prabhupada. And there's no competition. They both sit in my heart and they both support me.
Mm. Thank you.
And yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm so moved by everything you have said, of course. Since the moment you saw Prabhupada's feet for the first time till the very last word you mentioned about how there is no competition between Prabhupada and Srila Srila in your heart, because of course there's no competition between them. I mean, they were so close, so
They loved
intimate.
each other. They loved each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
as
think, and I want to ask you about that because sometimes, unfortunately, that particular aspect of the relationship between the two of them is not as widely known for the devotees. How much love was there between Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj? How close they were? How intimate was the connection? And so, yeah, I'm appreciative what you are sharing. If you would like to share something else, but I think that's a very necessary point to make it clear, not in any way of like retrieving anything or reclaiming anything, but just highlighting who they are. Because if I love Srila Prabhupada and there is a person that Srila Prabhupada loves very especially, I will want to know that person. If there is someone who occupies Prabhupada's heart in a very special way, because I love Prabhupada, I will be interested about who are the special people in your life and in your heart, and vice versa towards Srila Maharaj. If we are in love with both, we want to know who they are in love with, so to say, in terms of close friendship. So
and I had to have pushback as well
yeah.
from my relationship with Sridhar Maharaj. I was called names, and I was,
Mm, mm,
I had to deal with that. But also, it was a very turbulent time within
mm,
within the movement. And
mm,
as Sridhar Maharaj says, we have to go where we find the current.
mm,
And that current um, kept me connected to the reason that I'm here today.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's funny for me because I was thinking you mentioned you received some And this without trying to criticize anyone. It was a turbulent time, as you know, as you said, and there were so many sensitivities being triggered and disturbance, understandable. But I was thinking, yeah, you mentioned people like calling you names or whatever by having somehow a connection with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And the immediate thing that came to my mind was like, okay, we are calling people like you or others names because of having a relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, but Prabhupada has such a relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So we are supposed to call Srila Prabhupada names for having a relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he has such an intimate bond with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Are we supposed to criticize him because of having a connection to Srila Sridhar Maharaj? It makes no sense, right? But
makes no
somehow we ended up criticizing some other people like you or others who have a connection with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, which if
Yeah,
you play out the math, it doesn't compute. But anyhow,
it doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. And the same with Pranod Puri Maharaj, who
Mhm.
spent quite a lot of time visiting Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and we had
Yeah.
his darshan as well, who was a true saint. And so in our lineage, we bow to the saints, and we have to find the broad church, the broad expanse, and not be, and that doesn't mean that we don't protect the institutions that have birthed us, so to speak, but it's just being respectful. And that was a very turbulent time as well, and we had to survive. And this was one of, the relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj was Prabhupada's gift to me in a very difficult time.
Yeah. I really love how you see one person in the other, how you see your relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj as a gift from Prabhupada, and
Absolutely.
how you see when Srila Sridhar Maharaj was talking to you, you felt he was accompanying you in service to Prabhupada. So it was
Absolutely.
always like interactive, and the two of them were always present somehow. No?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, yeah.
Yeah, and that's so noble from
And
a so much
we're
perspective.
family.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're family of devotion, and we have different uncles and aunts, and we have, and everybody brings us something special in our life.
Mm,
Sridhar
mm,
Maharaj gave me some, an other vision of the
mhm,
whole Siddhanta by
mm,
just sitting there and sharing, and it was in tune with what Srila Prabhupada said, but it was through his eyes, and it was
mhm,
through the Shastra. And we go to kindergarten at first grade and second grade, and we go to university,
mhm,
and we move through life. And I was so blessed. I just think I'm so blessed, to have the opportunity to meet true saints in this lifetime who so many years down the line are still present in my life and
mm,
underpin my daily practice and overlight my daily practice.
mm,
So, and that is, and by grace only,
mm,
we actually have this opportunity to meet and to grow,
mm,
because we have to, it takes effort on the spiritual path. It
mhm,
takes every day you have to show up,
mhm.
and you have to show up with your broken bits and your emptiness, and you
Yeah,
have to show up with your vulnerability, and you have to show up with your big heart as well,
yeah.
and your open mind and open to new possibilities, and meet the wonder of the moment. And that
Mm,
comes by the grace of our teachers, because
mm,
they meet the moment. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. It reminds me this definition of vulnerability, since you just touch up on vulnerability and about showing up with openness for whatever disclosure needs to happen, and reminded of this definition of vulnerability that I share in the book on Radical Personalism by Brené Brown. And she'll say vulnerability means to show up when we don't have a control over the outcome. No?
Mhm.
Like I don't have a control over the outcome. I have no clue what will happen, but I show up courageously. You ultimately trusting the unfolding of existence, of things. I trusting the nature of the unfolding, so to say, knowing that there will be a certain disclosure, a certain unfolding, a certain revelation that will be for my best, in my best interest, even though I don't know what that is. No, in these days of course we are recording this now, but tomorrow, at least according to the local calendar here in Mayapur where I am now, we will be celebrating Govardhan Puja. And I always like to make this point in connection to this point of showing up when we don't have any control over the outcome, because when Indra is sending this like apocalyptic rains, which is basically absolute chaos, the Brajavasis, of course, are thrown immediately into outside of the comfort zone, are thrown into liminal space, what to do now. Of course, they know what to do. They go to Krishna. That's the only certainty they have in the midst of all uncertainty. But at the same time, they go completely open to whatever Krishna will do. No, it's not like they go to Krishna with a plan, like you are supposed to do this and this is supposed to happen now. So they say, Krishna, give us shelter. But they are not attached to the particular, they show up to Krishna, so to say, but they don't go with an attached agenda of give us mercy and shelter in this particular way. Give us mercy and shelter however you think. We don't have a clue. They are open to the form his mercy and shelter will take. And he does the most wonderful thing, picking a whole mountain like if it were a mushroom and lifting it for a whole week, which is the last thing you may have thought about what will he do. So my point is that they were in the worst possible scenario 1 second ago, and now they are in the best possible scenario, having uninterrupted darshan of Krishna for a week. And what happened in between those two? Brajavasi is showing up vulnerably, acknowledging the storm, which we can make a parallel with the inner storm, and being open to whatever form, shape Krishna would like to give shelter to them. So anyhow, I was just triggered to say the things by what you were sharing at this precise moment. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and since we are touching upon showing up, wonder, openness to whatever lies beyond our control, basically, and you have just shared with me who somehow Srila Prabhupada is for you, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is for you. Let me continue with other question connecting all these dots, which is a question that I love to share to many of my guests, which basically is, who is God for you today? At this point of your journey, right? Because it's you use this expression, and that I also adopted and love, which is ever evolving mystery. So we are talking about showing up to the unknown, showing up with openness to disclosure. So yeah, who is this ever evolving mystery for you today at this point of your journey, where you are today in the landscape of your
the landscape of mine? Well, Maharaj, I've mentioned to you before that I have a strong Christ connection as well. And Christ is the Master Christ is still in my life as well. And I've shared the story, but public now. The day before I got initiated,
I was going to ask you about that one. So thank you that you took the initiative for that. I didn't want to push on that one. Yeah,
I went and sat in a Catholic church for 2 hours and asked, Master Christ, my first guru, after my mother, who was my first guru, he was my second guru, kind of thing. I asked for permission to, that I was embarking on a new journey. And so I went to take darshan and just see if this was my soul path, so to speak. And there were no earthquakes or flashes of light. But in the silence, I heard it would be good for my spiritual life. But I heard also, don't forget me. And so that thread has always been present in my life, but not out, so to speak. But now it's out. But and also I've read all the Christian mystics, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, Teresa of Avila was on the planet at the same time as Mahaprabhu. She was 18 years old when Mahaprabhu left, you know.
Mm.
So, you know, there's a connection between the lineages and between and that actually the divine is not Krishna is my beloved. And Krishna is my, you know, I worship Giriraj, who Srila Sridhara named as Vrajabalava. For 40
Mm.
years, he's been in my life. And he's, you know, he's my sweetheart upstairs. And, you know, and Guru Maharaj, and actually Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Prabhupada both always, you know, Srila Prabhupada, of course, came, you know, I wasn't worshiping Giriraj when I was serving Srila Prabhupada, but Sridhar Maharaj always told me, keep it simple, you know, it's heart worship. Prabhupada told me personally as well, the more you dress the deity, the more you dress your heart with Krishna consciousness.
Mm.
So, you know, deity worship is part of my dance with my spiritual life. My Christ connection, I have a little corner in my prayer room upstairs that is dedicated to my Christian tradition.
Mhm.
And your friend Richard Rohr, I've been following for many, many years. As well as
Our
Thomas
friends,
Merton,
our
as
our
well
our friends, yeah, they are
our
friends of
friends.
everyone.
And Thomas Merton and all the, you know, Father Bede, I went to his ashram. You know, I
Yeah.
have
Mm.
many connections with the mystical Christian journey, and I see that it is a personal philosophy, and there are differences. I'm a Gaudiya, but
Mhm.
I have deep affection because that's part of my lineage, my background is my connection with Christ and with the saints,
Mm.
and I just have deep respect for the sadhakas who are whatever their tradition are
Mm.
actually the Buddhists. There's in our community there are people of so many faiths who are endeavoring to find their connection with the mystery, with love of God, with
Mhm.
a path to self-realization and their eternal relationship with the divine.
Mm.
And I respect that, and I try to share, you know, honestly, my journey in a way that's appropriate, but mostly just living it. Yeah. I try
Yes.
to live my spiritual life and not
Mm.
and be an example to others that if we can, and that's not with ego, that's with humility. And you know, because we're all part of this planet Earth at this moment in time, and we're all part of a bigger picture, and we all have a spark of divinity in us.
Mhm.
And you know, so Krishna is my beloved, and
Mm.
Radha. You can't have Krishna without Radha. And Sri Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva are on my shrine. And yeah, and I just I bow my head every day and ask for their mercy because, you know, the grace of the beloved, the grace of God, the grace of Krishna comes when we ask.
Mhm.
Have to open ourselves. The grace is all there, but to
Mm.
be in relationship with the grace,
Mm.
it's we have to have an interaction. There has to be some action.
Mhm.
And that action is to bow our head and say, please help me to love you. Please help me. Please reveal yourself.
Mm.
Please show me
Mm.
where I can, you know, support or be in contact with
Mm.
um, your mystery. You know, how can I enter in? And
Mm.
I do that, yeah, humbly. And with an open heart, because actually this whole journey is a journey of the heart, and bhakti is a heart path. So that's
Yeah.
what that's. Does that help? Did you get it?
It does help. I'm not sure if I get it. I'm trying to get it for the last 25 years. I'm not yet getting it, but you're helping me to get closer there. So thank you. I wanted to highlight one point, of course, all that you say, but one point in connection to just recently you mentioned now. Like, okay, grace is there, but it invites for some action to enter into a relationship with grace, because sometimes we can see these two other like dynamics in which we think, okay, there's no grace until and unless I take initiative, so to say, and I'm kind of like fabricating the grace, like invoking the grace by my action, and it's not like that. And also we can go to the other extreme of saying, oh, it's all grace, it's all mercy, so I don't need to do anything. Grace is already there, and Krishna is so merciful that I don't need to do anything. No, it doesn't work like that either, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
Krishna is all merciful and everything, grace is omnipresent, but as you properly nicely mentioned, unless and until I invest myself in some way, there won't be a relationship with the grace. The grace is there, the gift, the matchless gifts are always everywhere, but if I don't do my part, there won't be a relationship to that, and I will live as if that doesn't exist. Basically, that will be utterly absent from, not from my life, but from my perception. It's in my life, but I'm just not seeing it. So I appreciated the point you made, because sometimes, many times I've seen devotees probably going more to the extreme of like, you have to earn grace or you have to make effort, and then grace comes. But if you don't make your part, uh, I don't know, Krishna may be angry, Krishna may not be there, grace may not be there, but that's not precisely the
No.
case.
Grace.
It's just about entering into a relationship with that thing that already is there, right?
Yes. Well, the grace is already there, but we have to open ourselves to receive that grace. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an action, is
Yeah.
to consciously, with intention,
Mm.
open, because everything is based on our intention.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have to, and that's why we are on a path.
Mm.
We're on a path because we're intentionally on a path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
and
that reminds me this. Today we were talking with some of the devotees I'm staying with here. You may have heard about Saint Therese of Lisieux. I don't know how you
yeah,
pronounce
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
And her famous Little Way,
yeah,
which basically has to do with doing small things but with
yeah,
lots of heart. No,
yeah,
so that's very much connected with that. Reminded me of what you were mentioning about the intentional aspect of bhakti, right? Because you can capture Krishna's heart completely and attain the goal of life by doing something externally very small, one single act of full investment of your heart. No? And sometimes when we go way too bigger on the outside, probably our heart gets a little bit like
yeah,
watered down, distracted by other, mm, who knows, motivations or intentions. So yeah, I appreciate this. Better to keep it safe in the sense of go for the little way, try to do
yeah,
this the most insignificant thing you can possibly do, but see how much you can give yourself in that particular act, how much intention you can pour on that flower you're picking from the bush,
yeah,
taking it, or that potato you're peeling. I mean, you can, there's no limit, actually, literally there's unlimited capacity to invest your intention in that single act, right? So sometimes I'm just thinking now how much sometimes we limit ourselves in this
yeah.
connection. We
And
forget about this. Yeah, sorry.
Srila Prabhupada actually taught us to be mindful.
Mm,
He said we have to make tasteful arrangements for the Lord.
mm,
That was his
mm,
plan. But he said we have to do it with mindfulness.
mm,
And mindfulness is being present to the action and being attentive. Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And that's the same mood as Saint Teresa,
mm-hmm,
Therese. Her mood was that the little acts were like flowers,
Yeah,
and,
little flower. Yeah.
and they were flowers. And so, in the same way, in Krishna consciousness, when we are mindful in our service and not just on automatic pilot, when we're mindful in our japa, then Srila Prabhupada taught us that that is essential for us to actually, for Krishna, for that relationship to be nurtured and for
Yeah.
us to come closer to the reason we're actually doing this work,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think of Rupa Goswami's Niyama Graha, where he will say in the opposite their language, this will ruin your bhakti, so to say, which basically means follow rules, regulations, or do stuff, but without this level of intention, this level of presence, this level of offering yourself, but just again autopilot or who knows what. So yeah, and I appreciate the idea of the little way of Saint Therese that sometimes she used the expression "little flower" because I went to okay, we offer Krishna flower garlands every day, but ideally we should offer our life as a garland, every single act being one little flower strung upon other little flower upon other little flower, every single act throughout the day being deeply intentional, full of presence. And at the end of the day, so to say, we have a beautiful garland of presence and intention to offer to him. And the next day, another little garland with some little flowers.
That's
And yeah,
beautiful, Maharaj.
it just came just a way of like illustrating the daily journey basically of
Yeah,
bhakti, because it's garlanding is such a part of our tradition, but
yeah,
also it can become autopilot, right? It also can
yeah.
become external ritual and just mechanistic. So how to find deeper purpose, as you will say, and meaning into making a garland. How do I make of myself a garland? And yeah,
And I totally agree with that because it's presence and intention on how we do our daily acts. And it's the same way with our japa. you know, our japa, we can be all over the place making shopping lists or whatever, but to actually work with the japa and to actually be turning the name in our mind, even when we're not doing japa, as an act of service and presence is a practice, and that is an offering, and you can actually, yeah, it just helps because actually for me it's prayer as well, and prayer is not just rote prayers, but prayer is always having that always be in relationship with the master, by asking and receiving and, you know, listening. Listening is such an important part of spiritual life as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking about, yeah, when we were in our UK retreat, I don't know if you were those days there or you had already left, but I think you had already left, because one of the last topics we talked about was one of the 7 pillars of radical personalism is like contemplative prayer. And one of the homeworks, no, at this point, among the devotees who went to the retreat, the homeworks became famous or maybe infamous for some. For some, it was too much, but they were very happy. We were happy. And one of those were like, as you mentioned, write your own prayer, for
Yeah.
example. No, I mean, we are not against the prayers written by our acharyas that we can invoke and saints from the past, but also write your own prayer. No, find your own voice, your own language, your own person, and write your own prayer from the particular stage you are in the journey, in your relationship with the ever-evolving mystery. And I remember that was one of the most moving homeworks or experiences many of the participants of the retreat had. Just sitting and write your own prayer. They felt so empowered, basically, by being able to put their voice into prayer, right? Because to have your voice is empowering itself, to pray is empowering itself. To put those two things together is a little bit more, way more empowering, I will say, right? So, yeah, individuation, prayer, all this put together. So, yeah. Thank you for that.
And also
Something,
doing your own prayer, you have to open up your link with the divine in order for that prayer to drop through.
Because how much is your own? How much is your own prayer or the prayer that you need to receive through, basically, right?
And also the process of creativity, of actually sitting with this blank piece of paper and just going deep inside yourself, but also going up and asking help to actually be able to make the proper words that can actually express your heart desire to connect with the divine is a really beautiful thing to do, and quite intimate.
Exactly. I would think exactly about that. That's such a little flower we will be offering. Not such a little, such a
Big
beautiful, big flower. We still call it little to keep ourselves humble. But the beauty of that is, in one sense, the anonymity of that as well, right? Like, because in those moments, as you say, it's so intimate that probably nobody knows apart between you. It's between you and the beloved, so to say. And it's fine. No, it's not that everyone needs to know about all these things. No, so it's so important also that we keep that privacy in the good sense of the term. In another sense, to have a private life in terms of hiding stuff, of course, is not recommended. But there is a place for sacred privacy, intimacy, where we don't feel that urge to have everyone know what we are doing, what we have said, what service we are doing. In one sense, we could say that the most impactful, powerful services, nobody knows about them. Nobody should
Absolutely.
know about them. Some way
And
of putting it.
yeah, because pride and ego and all that kind of stuff can come in as well. So it's just, it's just between you and the divine. And that is actually precious, and that actually anchors our spiritual life as well.
Let me not shift gears, because we are all talking, everything is one and everything is contained in the same conversation and non-dual reality. But you briefly mentioned a few minutes ago about the particular dynamics, let's say complex dynamics you went when you were married with your husband, Jayatirtha, how eventually and he took sannyas and you were left, so to say, single or widow, whatever is the term that sometimes is technically used. If your husband takes sannyas, something like that. With the young kid, no, he was what, five?
4.
Or so, of course, I can imagine, I cannot imagine, but having gone through some fires of ordeal myself, on some level I say I can imagine, but at the same time I cannot imagine the pain and the complexity of those times. This, apart from the complexity in the systemic level, in the environment at that time, not only your individual situation, but at the same time, I think that despite having been painful or even traumatizing or so complex, at the same time, I think we need in our tradition and in any tradition, in any life, more stories or of complexity, challenges, pain, suffering, and thriving through all those, not all those waters, so to say, so that we can also, how to say, acknowledge, incorporate, integrate suffering and pain as part of our journey, reclaim and redeem those elements of life, not as something that I need to get rid of as soon as possible. And I remember when I asked you before we had our meeting, I asked you, like, I was thinking maybe about presenting this topic to you. What do you think? You feel comfortable or not? And of course, you accepted. That's why I'm talking about it now. And you quoted Srila Sridhara saying, like, even obstacles may improve our position if we can take them in the right way. And from a higher angle of vision, it may be seen that everything is coming to help us, which of course are beautiful words, but you have to walk the talk, right? Because it's so tempting to do the copy paste, to do the parroting, which I'm sure you are not doing, but it's so tempting to just say that, but to walk that and to the point of realizing, oh yeah, that's true. Those words are absolute truth. That's how it works. That's how reality operates. So my point with this is, I'm sure you have gone through your dark night of the soul, and more than one for sure in many ways. But it has been one who made up who you are today through so many shared, deep, profound lessons. So I'm just inviting you to share with us some of those lessons, some of those chapters, so we can also learn to navigate complexity in a healing way, so to say. No, seeing even tragedy or so-called tragedy as a catalyst for awakening, for healing, for all that we need. No, so whatever you may like to share in that connection, we'll
Okay.
be grateful.
Okay. I'll just share a few stories about my relationship with Jai Tirtha first, and our relationship with
Mm,
Srila Prabhupada, because that was the beginning. And
mm,
I was married in 1972, 1st of October, and it was arranged. And I had 24 hours to decide if yes or no.
okay.
And, anybody who's not in the Krishna bubble will just think, oh my God, this is mad.
Yeah.
But we
They may
were,
stop watching the podcast at this precise moment, or this may be
what,
the reason why they will continue to watch it.
what's
Yeah.
going, what is this all? They've joined this organization, and then they're being paired off, and they have 24. No, but it was Krishna. It was totally Krishna. And I remember I sat up all night and prayed, what do I do?
Mm,
Because I had never spoke to him other than say, what color are the deities wearing tomorrow? Because I dressed the big Rukmini Dwarkadish, and he was dressing the little deities, So it was just quite
mm,
amazing. But what happened is I got to clear again, as I did when I sat in the church. It would be good for my spiritual life.
mhm,
And so the next day I said, yes, okay, I surrender.
mm,
And they're just like they're surrender times in our life when we just get, okay, this is what Prabhupada wants of me. This is what Krishna wants of me. I'm on the adventure. I'll show up. So I said yes. And then he said, okay, 1 week we got married and had to, make a kurta, make a bead bag for the groom. And what else did I? And make a feast. And Durrani helped me. And Srila Prabhupada said that we should get married in the garden, because some of the devotees weren't taking their vows seriously. So we got married, and my mother came, and then we went to see Srila Prabhupada in the garden. And it's such a beautiful story, because Srila Prabhupada was giving all these stories. He was giving a series of classes on how a beautiful wife was an enemy to the husband. And so I appear at the door with a plate of prasadam for Prabhupada in a glass, tied to my husband, whose name was Jayaju. And Prabhupada looks up at me, just like a loving father, and and then he looks at Jai Tirtha and he says, "Oh, she is beautiful." And then he winked. And it was just like, we see Prabhupada as, giving class and really stern and, the master. And here Prabhupada was just being a loving father. And
mm,
then we came and we sat with him. And he said, and I gave the plate, and he took the drink, and he took the drink and savored it, It was kheer, with almond kheer, with some pishta on top and
mhm,
cardamom. And then he took a few drinks, and then he looked over at Jai Tirth and said, "And she can cook." And that was because, and then it was like he was just being a loving father, And he
mm,
said, then he asked about our family and everything, and that was really the beginning of my relationship with Jai Tirtha, was really at Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada said to me, he knew I didn't know this person I was getting married to, other than he was the temple president and I was a brahmacharini. But he said to me that affection comes through service. And by serving nicely, by having Krishna in the center, your marriage, your relationships will be successful. And so that really was, the beginning of my Jayatirtha story was sitting at Prabhupada's knee, and we were sitting at the back when we first sat down. He had us sit right up against his knees, and we were right at his feet, and he blessed us. And we got the grace of having his darshan on that particular day and received his blessing. So it was all destined that way to happen. And we were a good team. We came to, we did deity worship and Sankirtan and everything. I just became a team player. And I had a teammate, and he was my friend, and we got on with service. We came to England in 76, and again, it was service. We just did service together. He bought a big roll of cloth and said, my wife will make all the curtains in the temple room. And in LA, in Bhaktivedanta Manor, those are big windows. And I had a month-old baby, but we made all the curtains in the temple room. We managed to do the service, and we managed to go out and Sankirtan. We managed to cook all the offerings, and and so many new devotees joined, and it was absolute bliss. It was absolute bliss. That there was so much service, and we were all mothers with babies, and we were doing everything. And Prabhupada was pleased when he came. He was so pleased. And so that was the backstory of the marriage thing. 8 years later, in 1980 or 1979, Jayatitha became a guru, and Prabhupada left the day after his 29th birthday. So Prabhupada left on the 14th of November, 1977. Jayatitha was 29 on, he was 29, gosh. Yeah, and he became, the guru thing happened.
He was 29 on the day before the next day.
Prabhupada left on the 14th of November.
Yeah.
Jayatitha's birthday was the 13th of November.
Oh, it's yes. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just, we were just children, really. And we were just young, and our master left, and we had to go forward in the best way. We had the blessings of Mahaprabhu, but we also were, we had to go forward. Anyway, 1979, Jayatitha was having some challenges, so a lot of kirtans, and he was kind of going into a wild space of kirtans before the intoxication came, but it was still some kind of I think it was maybe a breakdown or maybe something challenging. And anyway, in 1980, the GBC decided that it was judicious for Jayatitha to take the renounced order. And so I got a telephone call, and I got a letter. And I was reading the letter because I'm writing a book, so I'm going through all my archives, and I just read the letter the other day. I was just reading this letter that Jayatitha wrote, and he said, we have to surrender Prabhupada us to surrender our nearest and dearest. And he said that, where's this letter? I took it out, actually. It's so amazing, this letter from 19th of April, 1980. And he says in this letter, Srila Prabhupada has ordered us to take the renounced order of life, and it is the knowledge which is giving me strength. So he felt that Prabhupada, through the GBC, were just giving this order. And he said, after all, Srila Prabhupada is desiring it, and it means that God himself wants it to be. And therefore, what can we do but honestly submit ourselves? Of course, surrendering that which is nearest and dearest is very painful. And yet, Srimati Radharani says to Lord Krishna, if my distress is your happiness, then that distress becomes my greatest happiness. So please take full shelter of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna and remain strong. He says, we both take this as an impetus to become absolutely serious about Krishna consciousness. Then Srila Prabhupada's purpose will be served. This life is very serious business, and death may come at any moment. Therefore, we should be resolved to become fully Krishna conscious immediately. You should always be very clear that this is for my only purpose in furthering the Krishna conscious movement and accepting the order of Srila Prabhupada that I decided to take this step. So it came as a shock. But also, life is about surrender, and the spiritual journey is about actually showing up, as we said, but it's also about accepting that there is the hand of the Lord in all these challenges. And you have to really, as you know from your challenges, you have to dig so deep. And actually, at the first time, I gave all my saris away. Prabhupada always told my husband, he knew I liked pretty things. And Prabhupada always told my husband, every time you go to India, get your wife beautiful silk saris and bangles. So when he took sannyasa, we had nothing, but I had 50 silk saris. And I just went out and I just gave them to all my god sisters, and I took off all my jewelry. Some of it's come back now, just other pieces. I took off all my jewelry. I packed a bag with my son, and I went to California. And I left the house. I left all the pots and pans. I had to leave everything. And I was 32 years old. And I had a 4-year-old. So it was, and kind of the euphoric bliss of just, I have nothing. I'm only Prabhupada. Actually, and he gave me in this letter, he gave me instructions, how I had to, see him as my Pati Guru. And he actually says in this letter, which is quite amazing. He says, I promise to deliver you and Vaishnav Charan. He says, I have personally resolved that I will deliver both of you and Vaishnav Charan back home, back to Goloka Vrindavan, and and you can take this personal promise and commitment to you. And in this way, I fulfill my promise I made in our marriage. Thank you a million times for your chaste, devoted, and faithful service.
Thanks for sharing. That's very private, very personal at the
No,
same time.
but I share this as an example.
Yeah.
And it's not, okay, it's emotional. But I share this as an example that Krishna has a plan for each and every one of us. And I would never have, met Sridhar Maharaj. I would never be the person I am today if I didn't have to take my spiritual life seriously and actually dig deep and pray hard and be gifted with so many wonderful people in my life, many friends and devotees, because, we're not islands. We live in community. And our friends, our well-wishers, our community, and our actually hold our stories too. We hold each other's stories. And these stories are great teachings. You look in the Mahabharata, my story is not a Mahabharata story, so I'm not comparing, but we look
We'll
in...
add that one as an appendix in a newer edition of
no,
something.
no, but we look at the stories of, in our Vedic tradition, and the
Mm-hmm.
stories are multi-layered
Mm-hmm.
relationships that are embedded with deep teaching. And this is why I'm here today, Swami, help sharing the story that actually, we have to go through storms, but these storms, and there are emotional storms, and they still are sitting in our heart. And when we revisit these places of transformation and vulnerability, we grow. And we give hope to others who are experiencing difficulty, who are on the edge of in their spiritual life and thinking, I have almost lost faith, but I haven't lost faith because of my practice and my deep prayer and the grace of my Guru Maharaj. And so I just share that as, a hope, really, and as a positive that, and it's intimate. And, I share it though, but I share it with, to help others, but also to show that, some things are beyond our control. And we have to, when we put our head at the feet of Guru and Shastra and Sadhu, we have to actually come with an open heart, and we have to come with, to be with the prayer to be able to accept our dharmic path with humility, honesty, truth, and gratitude.
Mm. Mm. Oof, thank you. And I know you just shared some brief summary of the chapter, but it was very layered. Let's put it that way. Very layered and very.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to see you. I mean, who you are now, of course, as you mentioned, who you are now, that we are all having the chance to discover is in part due to your embracing your journey, your dark night of the soul, and as you mentioned, I appreciated the point you mentioned. We give hope to others. I mean, you didn't say like that, but that's how I took it.
Yeah.
we go through some journeys, through some storms, and even when we have gone through the storm, there's no longer raining, so to say, but still is raining in some part inside of us. In some
Yeah.
parts, some of those storms are not like absolutely gone or over. We are it's still part of our stories. So when we mention we give, I took it like we give hope to others
Yeah.
when by revisiting our storms. You were talking about
Yeah.
revisiting our
Yeah.
storms. So I see it as I'm falling into that idea, like it's so important because of course it's not my turn to go to my own storm. People already know about them. uh, and it's so crucial to revisit the storm. It's not
Yeah.
so because sometimes we have this kind of urgency to move forward, and the moving forward sometimes is how to say seen as totally unrelated to what has already happened, so to say, and that's not the case. No, like it has to be integrative, no, and whatever has been a storm, whether it is 40 years ago or 2 weeks ago. We can go there back, not in a toxic nostalgia, and not getting
Yeah.
trapped in the past, because that also can be there, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
So I think it's important how to revisit the storm without getting trapped into the storm,
Yeah.
but by being able to continue to draw lessons,
Yeah.
and by that exercise, I appreciate your point. We can give hope to other people, because sometimes hope is not necessarily about just showing a rainbow after rainbow, so to say, without any storm. No, like everything is nice and everything is perfect, and sometimes that doesn't give hope because it's not a realistic scenario. So sometimes we overemphasize becoming, we end up being like, how to say, harmony junkies, and we only want to talk about nice things. And I'm not pushing, let's talk about negative things, but just let's acknowledge the storm.
Be
And
real.
yeah. And let's make that part of our story. But let's talk about the storm in a redemptive way.
Yeah.
So that can give hope to people. I don't think that give hope to people is just telling them, forget your storm, escape the storm, deny the storm, repress the storm, and just be positive and be happy. You know, sometimes you need to go through the storm, you need to suffer, you need to be bewildered, but and you need to even revisit that even when that has happened. And that gives hope. No, that's you were mentioning this word of hope, 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 and it's so important. But sometimes we can also misread these things, right? We can think, okay, giving hope to people is just pushing on excessive positivity, so to say, and they may be going through some storm, and you are not addressing the storm. You are just telling them, I don't know, chant and be happy, which I have nothing against that. But sometimes for chant and be happy, also going through the storm is part of that equation, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I just to make that pawning on the post of hope, giving hope to others and to ourselves even is it's not about like discarding the quote unquote negative, but learning to make that part of the equation, right?
Yeah, and also reviewing ourselves when we were 32 as well, when I just didn't have a voice or didn't take my voice and
Mm,
didn't question and just accepted because the
mm,
GBC said kind of thing.
mhm,
But
mhm,
and so I think we need our to use our voice and be in our, our integrity and our power and not just accept things that, you know, weren't carefully thought out, but that
mm,
is not the topic. I choose to say yes, it could have been done better, but
mm,
it is the way it is, and it was
mm,
44 years ago, and that's a long time ago, and also there's no time.
mhm,
There's no time when these little kind of flags on the path, are big flags, are turning points in our life. And the turning points, the signposts on our life, are teachers, and they anchor us into, and they kind of help us to understand why we're here, and give us strength really to meet the shadow, to meet the brokenness, to meet the injustices, and to actually turn it around, to be able to live with it in a positive way,
mm,
and see the grace in the darkness, because the
mhm,
darkness is a very, very powerful teacher. And we all have to meet our shadow. We all have to meet that darkness. And in that darkness, we have to find the name, because the
mm,
name is the light in the darkness. So that's how I've coped with it, and how I've led my life, is to see these turning points in my life have been catalysts for me to take my practice deeper. And that doesn't mean there hasn't been moments when I questioned my faith,
mhm.
and I questioned the whole process
Yeah.
of the path, and I had to, reevaluate where I felt I belonged.
Mm. I appreciate that you have the courage to not confess because it was not a crime, but just to admit or share that there was a point where you questioned your faith and the path and
Absolutely.
whatever. Because many times we don't conceive that possibility, or we don't think that it's if you do that, it's seen as something like no. And actually, there are certain circumstances in which may even be healthy to give yourself permission for that questioning. But if you are honest, trusting that if you are honest and sincere, the questioning of the path and of the faith, if you are honest and sincere, that will only lead you to a deeper rediscovery of
Yeah.
the path and of your faith. So again, it's all about, it's not so much about don't question that or question that, but be sincere in whatever questioning you're having. No, so even if you happen for whatever circumstance to question your faith, the validity of the path or whatever, if there is sincerity in the questioning, that can only take you deeper, right? So I mean, in one sense, it has been also my experience of rediscovering Krishna consciousness by questioning certain aspects, at least starting with how the essence of the tradition is represented on a global level, systemic level. But of course, sometimes when some of that representation or misrepresentation is happening in a very massive way, it's difficult not to think, oh, maybe the whole thing is, there is something wrong in the whole thing, and it's not only a misrepresentation. When I'm just seeing one misrepresentation after another, there can be a point of overwhelming doubt of maybe the whole thing is a misrepresentation. And of course, again, once sincerity takes you to investigate and realize, no, the very essence, the swarup, so to say, the essence of this tradition is well and thriving, but there are so many things that have nothing to do with that. And by this questioning, by allowing myself to enter that space, which is very unsettling and very uncomfortable in one way, but only through that, I will say, in some circumstances, only through that, only through taking those steps, you can rediscover your tradition. If you don't dare to question certain things with sincerity, you may be stuck in a certain level of understanding, and you may not be able to go deeper, right? So
I
I
think
just wanted to
it's
make that point.
healthy. Sorry, it's healthy to question. It's healthy to question.
Yeah.
And also, as you said, it takes us deeper because we have to actually submit ourselves to deep prayer and meet our master in the heart and really ask for guidance from our inner guru, which is so important in our journey, is that, the inner relationship with the mystery. And one thing about the Jaitirtha is one of the big sadnesses, it wasn't all about me, it was about the community had to suffer through this whole story too. And I just really wanted to highlight that it affected the whole community, and it affected the disciples, and it affected the whole faith in Srila Prabhupada's mission. And so it was a little drop for me, and kind of a change in my life and an emotional change in my life. But it was also being held by, I had to hold the others too in their change. And that actually, I had to find, compassion for the brokenness of so many as a result of this particular action of him leaving the movement and ultimately, being killed. So the whole story is many, many layers. And also, as you say, it takes us to the edge where we have to reevaluate and pray deeply. Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Maharaj.
Yeah, and also I'm thinking, of course, despite the particular situation of Jayatirtha and how the whole thing unfolded, again, as you mentioned, I can also see by listening to your story and to how you went through those years, how he went through those years, by listening to the letter he wrote to you. Of course, one could say, okay, I wouldn't do the things in the same way they did the whole thing. They reacted to the situation, but as you say, we were 20 something, right? We were naive, we were young, and I can appreciate the sincerity and the commitment and the willingness to accept and to surrender. So that's in one sense for me the most important thing, despite how we should do it or not now. I mean, of course, by us talking about this, we are not saying, okay, all of you guys in this current time, you should replicate that particular way of doing. No, necessarily. But yes, you should be inspired by the surrender and willingness and acceptance. But at the same time, of course, fast forwarding to now, 40, 50 years after, still we hear till this day not to compare, not to make every situation the same, but situation with devotees being in guru positions, so to say, and having certain, let's say, problems with keeping up their commitments or vows. And at the same time, there are so many reactions, and I don't feel the need to go into any particular case and names because there are more than one. So, and I think all of us can know at least some of that, and not in any gossip spirit, but just to analyze, okay, what to do with that. No, again, how not to become cynical, or how not to become resentful, or how not to leave the whole thing altogether, and how not to just point at the. My personal feeling is, okay, some devotee or some guru had a problem. I don't feel that's all the fault of that particular person. In part, that person may have been, in some cases, an abuser of sorts, but at the same time, that same person is a victim of a system that is out of place. So sometimes it's more on a systemic level that we need to heal and to change and to adjust, in my opinion, how we deal with situations of gurus and power and hierarchy and following and all these situations that sometimes are given, and people being over idealized on a level that is not healthy for anyone, not only for the one receiving it, for those instructed to do so from day one. So how to ground and humanize and normalize certain dynamics, for example, guru disciple or some other things. So I will say that by addressing the healing and the adjustments of these scenarios on a more systemic levels, rather than pointing at one individual, another individual, we will prevent many situations that the ones that we could have prevented, many of the situations that have gone into another direction. So I was just reflecting on that, because still nowadays, unfortunately, some people is kind of feasting on others having a tragedy in their life, and just pointing at the individuals and expressing and I can understand. I mean, as you know, I'm close to many devotees who have gone through personal abuse with authority figures, so I don't want to diminish any of the trauma that they've gone through. But also, I think the bigger picture is just not seeing, okay, the abuser is the end point of the whole chain, but many times the abuser has been abusers, is submitting to a system that is toxic in one level without anyone's maybe bad intention, but somehow the system needs update, let's put it that way. So, and I know it's more complex to address a whole systemic thing rather than just pointing at one person and just, you were wrong, if you have done this, it's all your fault. Instead of saying the whole system, we need to unlearn that and heal it and make it reborn or whatever. But I think that's something we need already for some time still today to address that.
Yes.
Manjuali, we have still a few minutes. In connection to your life journey, you have been sharing with us very generously. I'd like to get to some concluding sections in connection to what you may like to call the toolbox of practices that have helped you sustain your life, your journey on the bhakti path for almost or more than half a century. So despite so many situations you've gone through. So I don't know which direction, which section of the toolbox you would like to open and to pick first. I'm thinking about some things, but whatever you may like to hear about.
You inspire me.
Well, a few things that come to my mind. Of course, first thing that comes to mind is prayer and presence in prayer. How the connection between prayer with presence. I mean, we talked a little bit about attention, intention, presence, motivation, little flower, all these related topics. But I feel tempted to beg you a few more words on prayer for you. What's prayer for you? How do you address prayer? Because sometimes we hear the word prayer, and I've seen devotees, but sometimes for many it's not clear. So what's prayer, or how to pray? What does it mean to pray? It doesn't mean that I chant my rounds in a certain way. It's a separate practice from my rounds. Is a practice unto at all, or it's just a state of consciousness beyond any official practice, or it begins with a practice, etc., etc. So according to
all of the above, Swami.
I know, I know.
Yeah, I told you on my first email, I think, my mother said, never underestimate the power of prayer was my mother's
Mm,
mantra as we were growing
mm,
up. And so prayer has always been a pathway for me to connect with the mystery. And prayer is not just rote prayer. Prayer is sitting in silence in the presence of the divine and listening. Prayer is not just about speaking at God; it's receiving
mm,
as well. And
mm,
that's what, in my journey and where I am now, is prayer is not something that stops. It's little pockets of connection with making the connection with the divine and keeping the mystery fresh and alive. Prayer is, I mean, I was praying this morning thinking, oh my God, I'm going to show up on this podcast and, please be present with me, my Lord, and help me to say something that might be useful and helpful for others. But actually, prayer is my life is prayer, and that's why I'm here today, is that prayer is something that I carry, and it is how could I say, it is a thread, it is a connection, a living relationship with the mystery, and it's listening, and it's being in dialogue, and it's um, being in service to um, the world as well. It's not just about me, but we are creatures within the whole cosmos, and
mhm,
we are sparks of divinity. Every human being and um, every plant, the divine is everywhere, and we're in communion with this divine by and so it's our intention and our attitude to use our environment and to be present in our environment as a channel for the divine love. And that is not done with ego. That is done in service to humanity, in service to the planet, in service to the divine, is
mm,
that we show up and we offer ourselves as a vehicle for love, really. And love is not the sentimental love. The love is the force that rules, that makes the world go round. They sing about it. All you need
mhm,
is love. But love is heart connection, and the path of bhakti is about heart. It's about that connection with the mystery that drives us forward, but also we're in service to help the marginalized. We're in
mm,
service to pray that wars are stopped and
mm,
actually work with our seen and unseen friends to actually make a difference in the world. You know, a prayer is you meet somebody on the street and you smile at them. That's a prayer.
mm,
That
mm,
that's the divine meeting the divine. Prayer, I see, is not just asking, but it's actually being in the dance of humanity and sharing on a deep level our humanity in service to the divine. So that is what fuels my days and fuels my passion for being an instrument for God's service. And that is not, I show up and I say, hey, use me as you see fit today, that I
mm,
might be, and we do the same for Srila Prabhupada. When we joined the temple, we came with nothing. And all they took all my books away. you know, I had three saris, yellow ones or pink ones first, then yellow ones, and we just gave up all our possessions, but we have the vehicle of our humanity. and our humanity is divine. So if we can use this vehicle that we've been gifted with, this temple of divinity, to and it's not just about positive thinking, it's about being in service to the mystery. And so every day we bow our heads on the earth and we ask Mother Bhumi to, we give thanks for this lifetime, and we give thanks for being here. And every day we rededicate ourselves at the feet of our Gaudiya, that we might, that each day we might please him and help him in the service of awakening others. And that awakening starts with home, because everything, our temple is really in our heart, in our guha. And that's why that's the temple. So we have to make friends through prayer with our heart, with our deep being, with our soul. And that happens by taking time to meet that soul and to go deep in there and be present to the spark of life that actually is a gift of humanity, a gift of incarnation, a gift of the divine. That spark of life is what connects us with the cosmos and each other. And that spark of life is how we touch others, because that spark of life doesn't have our ownership. It has we are in service to that spark of light. Yeah. And that spark of light is driven by love. Yeah. So that is my prayer, and that is my endeavor, is to be present to the Lord that is everywhere. And he's on the altar, but he's everywhere. And the challenge is to actually see him everywhere and to be present to his presence everywhere and to awaken others. And I love that Srila Maharaj always said, and you quote many times, Maharaj, that we have to change our angle of vision. And changing our angle of vision means changing our perception, that it's not a linear world, that is a multidimensional experience of being incarnate in a human being, and that we have so many friends and allies, and the nature kingdom helps us in our individuation on the planet, and it helps us to be of service to our beloved Guru Maharaj and the mission of Mahaprabhu, because the mission of Mahaprabhu is about enlightening. And how do you enlighten but with light? We are beings of light, and we have to be in the under the banner of enlightenment of Mahaprabhu. And the tool to do that is the holy name. The holy name is portable. The holy name is powerful. And the holy name will provide everything we need to dance our incarnational dance with love and gratitude and humility and compassion and hope. Yeah.
Om. Yes.
Om, om,
As
om.
Srila Maharaj will say
Om
Om.
Tat Sat.
Om. Om means yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for such a festival of words about prayer. And I like to go through so many things you mentioned and continue to unpack them, but we may not have time today for that. But we have eternity on our side.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the importance and listening and receiving and prayer being an every moment thing. Recently, I remember reading this book by the Christian, we will call it saint, Brother Lawrence. There's a
Oh,
book
yeah,
called
brother.
The
Yeah,
Practice of the
I know
Presence,
Brother Lawrence.
and he will emphasize these micro moments of prayers, like micro prayers at any moment, for even if it lasts for 10 seconds, 1 second. No, why limit again? Why, how much we limit ourselves in terms of not allowing ourselves to do those things, or not even thinking that those things are possible. No? So I think it's so important, as you mentioned before, and I like to mention so many times this word creativity. So to be creative in our practice, in our sadhana, and to not limit ourselves. Of course, not to go beyond boundaries and do anything and everything in the name of sadhana, but if there is some basic honesty and sincerity, there will be a natural coherence that follows, and we can have some coherent creativity, if you want to put it that way, and find yourself, as you say, prayer moments at every moment, smiling to someone in the street, picking a little flower, becoming a little flower, and listening, being present. And as you, I really appreciate the term rededication, rededicating ourselves, because we speak about dedication, and sometimes like an idea, okay, I dedicate myself and that's it because I already dedicated myself. Or like surrender, I surrendered. Yeah, but you can re-surrender. No, you can rededicate. We have to make more friends with this word re, not to add to dedication and surrender and everything. Because as you say, the mystery is ever evolving, so it always invites for a further dedication, a further giving of ourselves, a of everything, recalibration, readjustment. um, and also one more thing I like to highlight, I cannot avoid highlighting my own highlights when you mentioned take the time to meet your soul, no? And to make friends with your soul. That takes time, that takes energy, that takes presence, and but that's the only way we can attain deeply these treasures, no? It's basically at the end of the day to choose what do we want to do with our time, how do we want to spend uh, quality time, in which direction. That's the only way we can possibly develop a relationship, right? This investing quality time with a person. And of course prayer means that, means developing our relationship with the divine, with the mystery. So we need to spend quality time, and we need to first understand that to do so is not a loss of time. No, we need to get to that place that by the grace of the saints and by the scriptures, we get that experience that not only that's not a loss of time, but that's the best possible thing I can do with my time. Right?
Absolutely.
So we are more and more drawn to spend time in prayer, to spend time with ourselves, and as you beautifully pointed, understanding that this is part of a bigger picture which encompasses everything and everyone. It's not that prayer is a selfish act which is having no repercussion on what's going on in Gaza or somewhere else, so to say, but it's one of the most substantial, all-encompassing acts of acknowledging and being present to the interconnection of everything that exists, and from that place receiving the suffering of other people, sharing in the suffering, sharing in the joy, sharing in everything, like participating, as you say, in the beautiful incarnational hymn and dance, and being present to who we are all together, so to say, and to the fact that we are in this all together, so to say, no?
Absolutely.
But we need to enter into that experiential space where we can actually get that, no? And not just talk about it. Not so prayer is such a sacred circle, sacred arena. So yeah, thank you so much for your words. I cannot avoid sharing some feedback.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, and two more points that come to mind. Let's see if we have time. In connection to our toolbox. Toolbox is still open. We have taken the prayer tool. Let's go from. I just briefly mentioned now the sacred scriptures and the saintly personality. So I'd like to go touch upon those two to conclude our conversation. Maybe if we have time, let's see.
Okay,
No?
so yeah, 52 years down the line or 53 years or whatever it's been. Yeah,
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
toolbox, there are things that, I'm sitting here today because these tools have been in my toolbox. Of course, the scriptures and reading the scriptures and actually having to meet the challenging bits of the scriptures as well.
Yeah,
And
because it's a
some of
living
the
thing,
bits
right?
you have
Holy,
to
holy,
I just have to park some of it actually,
yeah.
because I don't understand it and I don't want it to get in the way of my faith being challenged. So I go and ask questions about some, but I am actually involved in 4 reading groups now, thanks since COVID, so and working with ladies because I think that it's important for us older. I don't know how many days I have left, so I want to use my senior time to help other people as I've been helped. And I think we were speaking about fellowship, and community is really one of the important things that hold us. And when we are wobbling, or when we're joyful as well, just to have a community of kindred spirits, of like-minded souls who are on a conscious journey, to relate with, and to support, and to receive from, has been a real gift in my devotional life. Some of my god sisters, are just gems in my life, and I feel so blessed to have dear friends who can be honest and show our broken, share our challenging bits, but also share our joys and encourage each other on the path. I think in every faith tradition, sadhu sangha, fellowship, community, is because we are communal beings, helps to feed and hold us in the journey and anchor us actually in their love, and we can share our love, and that's been a huge gift. With the scriptures underpin our
The
philosophy.
connection to the scriptures, I'm thinking, and I would like to invite you, and you mentioned that to me, so that's why I want to highlight the point that how holy books are also living scripture, right? How
A
if you
living
would like to share
scripture.
some thoughts in connection, yeah, to how the books are not like a passive
No.
compilation of words, but it's a
No,
living,
no, living
a
as
living
Guru is
entity.
living. As
As
Guru
Guru is
is
living.
living. Guru is
Mhm,
living. We think, oh, Prabhupada left, 40 odd,
mhm,
50 years, or how many ever years it is.
mhm,
Prabhupada hasn't left, because
mhm,
actually in the land of spirit, in the land of devotion, it's eternally present, and it
mhm,
is accessible if we have the faith and the will and the grace to be able to call that blessing in and be in dialogue with, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Maharaj, and all our guardians who have gone beyond. They are our well-wishers, and our well-wishers are gems in our life too, because they help us to anchor our faith by their love, by
mhm,
their teaching, and by their presence in our life. We know in spiritual life that we're just on a journey, and we will move into another life and another place. And I really like what you say, Maharaj, is that it's not just goal orientated, our spiritual life. We are in service to Krishna and
mhm,
our Guru Maharaj and the lineage of Mahaprabhu and all our acharyas. And this is a living, vibrant, we go to these holy places. You're in Mayapur Dham now. You bow your head in this. You bow your head on the land that Mahaprabhu walked on, that Srila Bhakti Vinod had his vision on, that Srila
mhm,
Bhakti Siddhanta actually created his mission. And this is transcendental.
mhm,
This is beyond time and space. And I think part of our journey is to be able to move between time and space through prayer and
mhm,
through our practice, and be able to change our angle of vision, to see that Krishna consciousness and our spiritual journey is a living practice. And
mhm,
it's a practice that's anchored in the Shastra, and it's a practice that anchored in grace and mercy. And it is a
mhm,
practice that we offer ourselves to be part of. Yeah, with love. We show up. We show up and we
yes.
say, hey, I'm
Mhm,
here. What can
mhm,
I do to help you in your service, oh Master, oh beloved? And
mhm,
and if we are graced, and we are graced, then a little bit of grace descends and helps us to actually see that presence is not something, are not just words, but is an actuality.
Yeah.
And that actually presence is what keeps the world turning it, and it keeps us alive and engaged, and it keeps us in questing that sense of wonder, because presence is a multidimensional blessing, and it's not something that we take lightly, and we don't talk about this, but we actually experience that through the grace of our Guru Maharaj, and through the grace of his holy books, and through the grace of the community, and through the grace of Mother Earth, and through the grace of all the cosmos, we are here at this moment in time, which is eternal presence. Yeah.
So it seems we were able to finally discover Krishna even in a podcast. I think we did it. We finally were able. You're talking about the omnipresence of grace everywhere, and I'm having at this moment this epiphany, this realization. It's even in the Free Radical podcast.
Even in the Sri Radical podcast, by your
Yeah.
grace, Maharaj.
No, 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 no. No. But by the, as we always hear, no, not only by my grace, maybe not only by your grace, but by the joint effort of presence, of
Yeah.
sincerity, and trying to give ourselves each other to the mystery. Naturally, Krishna makes himself presence. Like Bible also will say, when two or three gathering my name, there I am. No, so very similarly in all traditions, this principle of magical presence is invoked. So I felt that presence. I felt
Divine.
the grace of the sweet absolute becoming manifest in our exchange of hearts. I felt the empowering coming from that, and it's for me a reaffirming of how crucial this is, not only for me but for all of us, to as we invest quality time in dialogue, conversation with Bhagavan, in prayer, also to invest quality time in this type of sharing of the hearts, revealing our mind. As Rupa Goswami will say, that's such an important, powerful, not only way of showing affection to each other, but like reinforcing our faith and renewing and recharging and re-upgrading all that needs to be re-energized. So I feel deeply, deeply happy and satisfied for the full meal you have given to me today. Like they say here in Bengal, akanta, which means up to the neck. No? So I've been feasting for the last, and I always like to make that connection of feasting, because in the Christian tradition, of course, they have this expression of the banquet and
Yeah.
the feasting, and that's kind of the prospect in eternity. And in our Gaudiya tradition, we also have Mahaprabhu serving prasad with his own hands, and prasad means
Yeah.
grace, basically, and he's feeding his devotees with grace, akanta, up to the neck. So it's very crucial parallel with Christianity in terms of the way grace expresses itself, like a feast, like a banquet, and we are being filled and fulfilled and overfilled. So thank you for being a channel for that. Thank you for being a very,
Thank
very
you.
healthy instrument to bring that not only to me, but I'm sure to many of the listeners that will rejoice in this beautiful conversation. So before concluding, Manjuali, I'd like just to ask you as we close, will you dare to share a parting reflection to invite our audience into deeper contemplation, something they can carry forward and continue pondering after our conversation regarding what we shared today,
Okay.
whatever comes as an inspiration to you, some extra homework.
Extra homework. Well, surprise homework. Actually, I just really want to thank you, Maharaj, for inviting me to share. And I just want to send out a prayer to everybody who will watch this. I have actually journeyed through and shared some deep challenges in my life, but I share it with love, and I share it with humility and hope that actually every one of us has a challenge, every one of us has a gift, and we have to find the gift in our challenge. And we have to find the presence of divinity in our challenges as well, because this human life is such an opportunity to meet our true identity, our true self. And this comes through the gift of our teachers and through the gift of each other. So try to be kind to each other, try to actually meet each other in a place of heart and respect. And let's pray for the world. The world is in such a difficult place right now. And as a spark of humanity, let's pray, because prayer has power. And let's live our life, microcosm, macrocosm. If we can actually find the peace within ourselves and the love within ourselves, we can be a channel for that love in the world and help to heal the broken bits of others. Be compassionate and kind, and actually have a sense of humor and follow your creative journey, because creativity and our creative journey is such a gift in us individuating in the world, telling our story, and actually understanding the deeper truths that our masters are endeavoring to share with us. So thank you for all being present today, and I thank you for listening to my story. And my story is personal, but it's actually blessed because I have had the good fortune to meet saints in my life. And may they all bless you on your journeys as well, because by the grace of the divine, we are at this moment in time, and in this moment of time is full of grace. So capture it, everybody, and just spread it out and share it, because it carries love, and love is what actually sustains the world and sustains us as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manjuali, for coming with us today and joining in the Free Radical podcast.
Thank you.
Jai Gaur Hari Hari Bo.